42% of salespeople are not hitting their OTE, their on-target earnings. Now, that either means that the target's too high, there's not enough prospecting, there's not enough activity going on, and there could be a whole host of reasons for that. But I find it really interesting that when it comes to salespeople being successful, achieving their goals, achieving their targets, often it comes down to the leadership, but it also comes down to the structure of what they're going into, how experienced they are, whether they are able to do it themselves, whether they're a self-managed or if they need somebody there behind them cracking the whip to get them making those calls and doing their activities. So if 42% of people are not hitting their target, there's something wrong. And for me, I go and look straight towards the structure and the KPIs, and then I look towards the leadership. Now, something that I find really frustrating, and this is as a salesperson, is that I see so many businesses that have gone to the effort and the investment level of hiring salespeople. They then expect them to go out and do the job. And depending on how much they're paying them, the expectation I agree with, that should certainly be there. However, when it comes to remunerating or targeting or setting KPIs, they are so quick, and this is not everybody, but often businesses are so quick to remove the bonus, to be like, oh, you didn't quite hit that, or oh, we're not actually classing that one, or we've already spoken to them, so they don't count as a new one. Whatever the thing is, all it's doing is demotivating your salespeople that feel like they've just got that win. So let's say they're starting out, or let's say they've had a few months where they haven't quite hit target, and you're taking away the thing that's going to keep them going. And so for the $50 you were going to give them, or the $300 they were going to get for closing that deal, and it doesn't quite meet the parameters, but we should recognize that it's actually a great thing that they've done, we should be remunerating them. We should give them that money. We should give them that recognition. And it's not about you anymore as the leader or as the business owner. It's about empowering them. And, leadership is a really interesting topic. It's something I love learning about, and it's something that I think for me, I know I will continue to learn about, because my job has changed. If I think back when I was a salesperson, it was all about me. It was about how am I going to get there? How am I going to do it? How am I going to close the deals? How am I going to find the opportunities? How am I going to fill the pipeline, hit my target, keep everybody happy, and then make that money? Get that commission check at the end of the month or end of the quarter. And then as I built the business, it was then around, okay, well, how do I build this as a business? How do I make sure it's sustainable? How do I make sure I can keep doing this? But then when we look at then now bringing a team on, so over the last 2 years or so, we've had a team and we're now scaling it at a rapid rate for 2025. That it's changed. It's no longer about me. It's no longer about the goals that I've set or about what I'm trying to do in the business. That's still there, and it should still kind of sit as the North Star of where I'm going. However, it's now about the people. It's now about how do I get them out of bed and excited every day? How do I get them on the phones every day? How do I ensure that we're delivering a fantastic service for our customers, whilst also ensuring that they're learning and they're being able to adapt and be able to do more the next week, the next month, earn more the next week, the next month, and then support them in going wherever they end up going in 2-3 years based on the role that we've given them, and who knows where our business will be then. But for right now, we're hiring SDRs, LDRs, so sales development reps, lead development reps, and they're more of a junior position, or they're people coming back from returning from leave, or they've been out the industry, or they're coming into the industry, or they just don't want to cold call anymore and they want to deal with warm leads, and they're the people we're getting. But everybody has a different goal, a different motivator. And our job as leaders is to inspire and motivate that team. And that does not come from taking things away. It's almost like, when you see like the kids at school, I don't know, like I think now it's definitely changed to when at my day, when I was in school, the first person won a prize, second and third, and that was it. Whereas now everyone seems to be walking away with medals. And I'm not saying that everyone should walk away with a medal. What I'm saying is that if they are close, or if they have done it, but it's on a technicality, do not punish your salespeople. You will lose your salespeople, you will demotivate your salespeople, and they will go elsewhere. And that is a big bugbear for me at the moment. It's something I'm seeing, in businesses. And I'm sure it's coming from a place where businesses are struggling. They're nervous about, where that money is coming from. Or they're seeing the salesperson about to be paid more than them. And that is a reality. That is the reality of sales sometimes, is that your salespeople will sometimes be paid more than you. But that's only if they're making money for you. So surely you're making more money. You might not be paying yourself as much. Who knows? So that for me is something that I think I just want to get out there on the table. Give, if that's you, if you've done that before, you can rectify it if they're still there. You can say, look, on reflection, I just want to say, not even on reflection, but just last quarter, you closed a couple of deals. I know they didn't quite hit the quota, but I'm going to pay you on them. That will go a long way in the way they're going to show up, in the way they're going to do their job, in the way that they're going to stay and be loyal and be within the business for a little while longer. So that's one thing. The question I posed at the beginning was that there's 42%, and this is actually a stat James Burgle shared with me. He's been on the podcast as well just recently, so definitely go check him out. But he said about 42% are not hitting OTE. That's an industry, number figure, and I just think it's so interesting that that's nearly 50%. I like a good roundup. That's nearly 50%. That's nearly half. So 42%. That for me just goes. That's nearly half of all salespeople are not hitting their target. Now, that for me comes down to lack of prospecting. What tends to happen on a sales journey is they start off and you kind of start down here. And if you're watching me on the video, I'm using my hands a lot. If you're just listening, they basically start at the bottom. They come in, they've got nothing to their name. If they are the first salesperson going in, or if they're replacing a salesperson, the chances are they will pick up some pipeline. They'll pick up some leads, but it's going to be a handful. You're not going to know the reality of where they actually sit, and therefore the reality of it actually coming through. And you've got to do some work. Then once you start doing the prospecting and you start building conversations and you start having meetings, second meetings, third meetings, start writing proposals, then you start to see the curve upwards, ideally. Now, if you stop at that point, because you're busy, because you're writing proposals, because you're having all these meetings, what will happen is the curve will slow down. You'll start declining back down towards 0 or lower numbers. That happens because we need momentum and consistency when it comes to prospecting. If you've been successful for the first couple of years, what happens then in businesses is they increase targets, as they should. However, we need to make sure that the remuneration is increased, because if your target's gone from $100,000 to $200,000, your base rate is the same, your commission is the same, why keep doing well? Why not just maybe this time don't quite hit your bonus or don't quite hit that target, go in something slightly lower, they might keep the target the same, and you just kind of go along in that way. Whereas what I tend to find is that with businesses, and this is the way I was remunerated as a seller, and it was awesome, was that I got paid a base rate. And then on top of that base rate, I earned commission. And I earned commission based on gross profit. So based on GP of everything that I sold from $1. So the first firewall I sold, the first, license I sold for endpoint protection, the first laptop I sold, I got paid on all of that. And I got paid based on profit. Now, as a salesperson, I could see how much our buy price was, what the RRP was, and then where the discount level sat for us. So I knew when I could up it, down it, depending on where I was at and what I was trying to achieve with the prospect. Now, if it was a new account I was trying to get in and I was against other people, I would lower the GP, which meant I made less money, which meant the company made less money. But it was strategic. The goal was then, once they were in, give them great service and start creeping up the price. So we were back to level as to maybe what they were buying before or slightly under. What that meant was that I was in control of how much I earned. Now, as the target increased, so after year 1, I sat down, we had a conversation, and the team, the leaders, the managers said to me, we want you to increase. We want to see an increase. We want to see an increase of 64%. And I was like, what? 64%? I've worked my ass off, the last 12 months. And so I was like, look, I'm not committing to anything. I'll just see how I go. Safe to say I exceeded that and made a lot more money that year as well. Now, why I'm telling you that is that often what businesses are doing is they're increasing the target, which means then obviously then you're, the workload increases, but you're not remunerated. So I spoke to somebody the other day, she works for a vendor, and her target's gone up. So it's gone up by, I think it's by like 20 something percent. but she gets paid commission on all of that money up until that amount. So she gets paid the same amount of commission. She'll then, beyond that target, will then hit the accelerator, and then beyond that that will then increase her commission. Now, that's how most vendors work, but sometimes that can actually feel quite demotivating. If there's no, if they just hit the same number again or just hit target again, the chances are the number actually doesn't increase that much, because the year on year, so whatever she did last year, if she does that again this year, but she's not on the accelerator, she'll actually earn less by hitting the same number she did last year. This year again, she'll earn less than she did last year. Now, I don't know whether that's that motivating. And so I question whether the targets are too high or whether the effort and the KPIs that are at this lower range of activities are too low. And so what we tend to find with salespeople is once they've kind of gotten out of their probation, their 3-6 months, and gone beyond that, we then kind of forget about them. We're like, okay, they're salespeople, they're getting on. The only time we care about them is if they miss target, or if we want to increase target, and we're like, come on, you can do it. And then we're like, cool, let's get you selling more. But we need to come back to actually, what does it mean for your business? So the bigger the business you are, the bigger this question is going to be. The smaller business you are, the more insight you're probably going to have, because you're going to know every moving part of that business. So we do want to pay your salespeople based on what they bring in, because the more money they bring in, the more money you make, therefore the more money they should make. That to me makes plain English sense. If we are not inspiring and we're not motivating and we're not teaching and we're not training and coaching and giving different angles and sharing different stories, we're not doing any of that. And so why would they stay there? Why would they stay with you? Why would they stay doing what they're doing? Especially if things are changing and they're not hitting their OTE, because OTE is what gets salespeople excited, and I've seen it. And, the numbers have changed, the expectations, the inflated salaries have changed. I remember COVID times, just after COVID, when people were being offered jobs for about $450,000 OTE, where previously they were $250,000 OTE. And this massive inflation meant that nobody else could afford these people. No MSP partners. Even some of the vendors were struggling, especially at this newer stage. And everyone was like, great, I'm going to go work for that company. And what happens then is 6 months later, 9 months, 12 months later, they're either being let go, they're leaving because there's no way they're going to be able to hit that target number. And it's just not working for anybody. And so we need to believe, I believe we need to have a balance between base level and commission. I always recommend focusing on the commission, the bonus, the remuneration, because yes, we can have comfort if we've got a higher base. However, what should drive you every day is going out there and getting the opportunities and getting the sales. And you want that to be bigger. I would say you want that to be bigger. And so making sure you've got that alignment, whether you're whether it's your business and you're hiring, whether you're the salesperson, be prepared to be bold and put your money where your mouth is. And if you believe you can do it, get them to believe in that and get them to trust you in that by looking at a lower base but a higher commission. Now, looking at that comes down to, is it achievable? So they may, position this incredible commission structure. How will you hit it? What customers are they dealing with? How many calls are you having to make? How many meetings are you having to have? Do you have collateral? What I'm seeing in a lot of businesses, especially those ones that want to scale, they've got a capability statement. They've got a brochure, and that is it. That's rubbish. For a salesperson, they're not going to use any of that. Well, it shouldn't be, unless you're in tender mode and you want to close something. At that point, around, box ticking. But you want more than that. We need webinars. We need people to stand out and give their thoughts. We need people to share about what's happening in the industry beyond what we can just find on Google. We need, intel on reports and white papers and assessments of their client base and case studies. We need that to help us sell. And so if you're going to take a role and somebody's promising you the world, is that world achievable? And I think based on the numbers we're seeing of that 42%, there's definitely going to be a mix in there between, is what they've been promised achievable? Is it doable? Is somebody else doing it in the business? And have you got the right people in there? Have you got the right activities being tracked? Have you got all the right, processes in there to help motivate and move them forward? And so this for me is a bit, a public service announcement around salespeople. But if your team are not hitting target, I recorded some content for our Tech Sales Accelerator program. And that was on, we should be lowering targets if they're not hitting them. And although that may seem a cop out, we need to come to the party in both levels. If your target is here, if you let's say your target is 2K, let's say you're only about to hit 100K of it. we need to change the target, because if you've got 3 months left to hit that, you're not going to bother because you're not going to hit it. And depending on your commission structure will depend on whether they get paid during that time. So if you are 250 target, they're only about 100 and they've got 3 months left, switch the target for the last quarter. Give them something that they can achieve so that they'll come into the next quarter hungrier, more driven, and more confident in themselves and in what it is that they are selling and going to market with. The content I shared around that was about if we lower it, we give people the ability to hit it. Once they hit it, we start increasing it in increments so they can get back to their number again, and away we go. Now, they don't have to be remunerated in the same way. I'm not saying if the target there was 100K, they would make if they hit that. I'm not saying that they should be earning that without hitting that target, but make it smaller, make the remuneration smaller, make it easier for them to have a win, because when they win, they feel great. The energy changes around a salesperson, the energy changes in the office, in the room, and we need to see that. And if you're a salesperson that's not hitting, if you are a team or a business that's running and you've got people in your team that are not hitting, you need to look at how we're inspiring, how we're motivating, and how we're incentivizing, because something is not quite right. It could be a KPI, it could be leadership, it could be the actual ability to achieve that goal. And it's a collaborative effort to get there and to achieve those great results. It wins for you as the business owner, it wins for salesperson as the salesperson. High risk, high reward is what we're brought in for. It's how we operate, it's how we should be operating, but we need support to be able to actually achieve that as well. So go and look at it, look at how you're inspiring, how you're motivating, how you are remunerating, what your KPIs are, and see if there's something there you can do before you lose any great salespeople.